Good afternoon, everyone. About this afternoon, about a few minutes before 3 p.m., I received a call from Premier Ford. We had a conversation. He apologized for attacking me personally yesterday during question period. I did tell him about that I really appreciated his call, and I think we need to be able to look at, it's not me that he needs to apologize to, but it's Indigenous people across Ontario to undo the damage that was done on the vaccination strategy that we're moving towards. But not only that, we need to start looking at the urban Indigenous vaccination strategy, a plan on how we can move forward. Yeah, I'll take questions if there's any.
And we'll go to the phone lines first. Okay. So the phone lines, and we'll just go let the operator progress through all the questions.
A reminder to press *1 if you have a question. And your first question will be from Travis Danraj, Global News. Please go ahead.
So thanks for taking my question. Listen, we were just talking. You were doing an interview with Global, I guess, and right after the Premier called you. Can you just get into a little detail in terms of how that conversation went, how long it was? And I know that you say that you want more from him. Did he express, interest in hearing some of your concerns, sitting down with you further? Because I know the issue that you were trying to highlight before all this noise happened was Indigenous populations in urban settings and them getting the vaccine. Was it a long conversation? Can you just elaborate a little bit more?
A conversation was probably about a minute and a half. We spoke about what had happened and personally attacking me, but also, and then he went on to say that he didn't have Minister Rickford to answer the question that I was trying to ask. And so he felt, he told me that he felt I was going after him on the issue itself of urban Indigenous vaccine plan. Something that, and he felt that I was that I was attacking him, I guess, but I was just asking a question. So we had a conversation about that, and another thing we spoke about is he invited me to come to his office. He invited me to go meet him, and so I said we'll have a discussion on that at some point. So whenever I'm back at Queen's Park, which is the week after next. So.
And just to follow up, I know that you told Global News Radio this morning that this was an example of colonialism in 2021. I know Leader Andrea Horwath for the NDP, she talked a little bit about privilege and that she feels like that plays in here. Can you just talk in general about how this incident has made you feel as an Indigenous member of the legislature?
I think for him to say that I'm not part of that community, whether it's the Northern Riding, whether it's it's trying to remove me from that setting and put me in a place where a colonial structure like being in a legislature wants to put me there. He has no right in doing that, and that's what oppression is, and that's what colonialism is. And I think, and that's what as an Indigenous person, yes, it was a personal attack on me, saying that I jumped the line. But I think when you are trying to save lives, literally, in Indigenous communities, that wasn't a fair comment. We didn't talk about that, but I'm just saying. But I think we need to be able to, again, it's the Indigenous people across Ontario that need a public apology from him.
Next is Laura Stone at the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Hi, Sol. I just wanted to follow on that. So do you accept the Premier's apology and you said in your opening remarks you want him to apologize to Indigenous people. So can you just expand on whether what he has done today is enough?
When that telephone conversation that we had, I didn't say I accepted his apology. All I said, I appreciated his call. I appreciated that it came from him. And that's pretty much what I said. But I think when you actually think about it, like it's the we have to undo the damage. We have to fix those issues that are happening in Indigenous communities when we talk about urban Indigenous people. And again, if he's apologizing, like I think I would want to see some action. Action speak louder than words, and we need to be able to see those urban Indigenous-led vaccine clinics in Toronto, in Thunder Bay, and they're in a crisis right now. So we need to be able to address those. And yeah, that's some of the comments I have on that.
And so, regarding the invitation to his office, are you planning on going there? And why would you want to go there? What would you see the purpose of meeting in the Premier's office with the Premier? Why would you do that?
It's been almost 2 years since he had invited me to his office to go for lunch. But I think what's really critical is, I would rather see him in the flying community in Northern Ontario where there is a housing crisis, where there is a water crisis, where there is infrastructure crisis, wherever there's a mental health crisis. And I think that's the invite that I would have, to do that. It's not just simply just going to his office and having a cup of tea.
Next question is from Richard Southern, 680 News.
Paul, you've had a day to think about this, and I'm wondering if you have any more thoughts on why you think the Premier said what he said yesterday.
What's that again?
I said you've had now 24 hours to think about this, and I'm wondering if you have any more thoughts on why you think the Premier said what he said yesterday.
I think, I spoke about, I reflected quite a bit last night about what that meant, those things that he said about jumping the line, but also being not from the community and jumping the line. Those there's three things that he said, and I think about colonialism. I think about racism. I think about oppression. I live it on a daily basis, and for me to react to it right away, and I wasn't able to do that because I have normalized it. That's just normal for me because we live it on a daily basis, and I couldn't call him out right away. It took me time to reflect, but that's what our people face. If leadership, Indigenous leadership, if First Nations are trying to fight for their land or fight for access to clean drinking water, that's the same response that they would get from a colonial setting such as the Ontario government.
Paul, the Premier said yesterday that he talked to a number of chiefs who had an issue with you getting the vaccine. I know it was a short conversation, but did the Premier elaborate on that? Because I know members of the media were unable to find any chiefs that took issue with that.
I never asked him about it. I never heard any chiefs talk about that. I've had nothing but support from the, calls or support from the communities.
Next is Chris Rushway at the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Oh, hi, thank you. I was just wondering if you could maybe give us a few more specifics about the Premier's apology. Did he say the words that he had personally attacked you and that he was sorry for it?
Yeah, he said he said that he never should have personally attacked me. That he never should have done that. He apologized for that.
And do you think that the private apology he gave you is good enough? I mean, given he made the accusation in public, should he apologize in public as well?
And I think there's been a lot of work done at the community level when we try to improve the uptake of the vaccine. That work takes a lot of leadership. There's a lot of leaders that took the vaccine to increase the uptake. And me, as a Indigenous person, a First Nations person, for him to personally attack me is an attack on Indigenous people, and he needs to publicly apologize for that.
Next question is from John McGrath at TVO. Please go ahead.
Just to elaborate on that, did you get any sense from the Premier? Did he tell you whether he intends to apologize publicly, or was that not part of the conversation?
No, we didn't have that conversation. It was just out of the blue because a lot of people were reaching out to me that, including the media, that they've reached out to his office and that they weren't planning on apologizing, or that he wasn't planning on, apologizing.
And earlier this year, if I remember correctly, you removed the word reconciliation from your critic title. And my understanding was that was something you did basically because you don't think that reconciliation is happening in Ontario, that it's not, it's maybe not even possible. I'm wondering if you could speak at all about that, given the context of yesterday and this apology now.
With this government, reconciliation is not in their vocabulary, is not in the work that they do because of how they treat Indigenous people. Nobody, example is when I was dealing with the crisis in Miskandaga, the water crisis, when I was talking to the leadership, there was no minister from this government that reached out to Chief Monias at that time, and how can we help? And in the meantime, there are these EA processes that were happening within their treaty territories. And so I think, I came to understand, removing reconciliation, like why am I trying to promote reconciliation, whereby this government will say things, but not, again, actions speak louder than words. And there's no action with this government when we talk about reconciliation.
Again, as a reminder, if you have a question from the phone, please press star followed by 1. And next, we will hear from Holly McKenzie at the Canadian Press.
Hi, Saul. I just wanted to hear a little bit more from you about when you talk about the damage that these kind of comments could and might have on the vaccination effort, and why a public apology is so important to that.
Hi, Holly. Good to hear from you. Certainly, I think when we talk about what's happening in Thunder Bay with the increase of positive cases over there, but also in Toronto, I know a lot of Indigenous communities, flying communities, are feeling it as well, whereby the numbers are increasing in these communities. And I think when we talk about communities, Indigenous communities that have been impacted with this and do the damage of the commitment, that the work that they've done, where we literally are trying to improve the uptake of the vaccines. And I think, again, going back to the urban Indigenous-led vaccine clinics that I was asking for, that's how we can undo the damage.
Follow-up?
Yeah, and just as a follow-up, I mean, is there also concern that comments like that Indigenous people taking a vaccine are jumping the line, could that kind of make people more fearful of seeking a vaccine in case, they're afraid of retaliation or, people misunderstanding that they are being prioritized for a vaccine.
I listened to a small clip of Minister Elliott making comments that you have to wait your turn. Basically, they were doubling down on it. And, they're trying to put me in a category where I'm not Indigenous, where I'm not First Nations. Again, that's going back to exactly what I'm talking about colonialism, about oppression. Government cannot do that, especially when you're responsible for the health and wellness for the people in Ontario. You cannot continue to oppress people. You cannot continue to try and colonize us.
No other phone questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mamakwa, in chatting with you, I know that you're motivated by being a First Nations person and then a politician. And your motivations, has this affected the way you're motivated now? And the bigger picture, has this raised awareness, or is this, I'm trying to put this in a scale of your ultimate goal for reconciliation. Has this helped it? Has it hurt it?
The governments, the bureaucracies need to understand that there's treaties with Indigenous peoples across Ontario. And this government does not respect treaties. And like say, for where I come from, example, Treaty Number 9, and treaties across Ontario. Like I know the government is, when we talk about economic recovery as from COVID-19, they are depending on the north. They are depending on the timber. They're depending on the minerals that are on our treaty territories, on the treaty territories of these land rights holders, treaty rights holders. And they continue to treat them as stakeholders. And nations, First Nations, land rights holders, treaty rights holders need to be part of the discussions, but also the decision-making process. They need a seat at the table.
So is this, I hesitate to call it an incident, but does this put a spotlight on that, negatively or positively?
I think, for them it's maybe negative, but I think for Indigenous, I'm First Nations and I grew up, the way of life, the teachings and the language, the history, and we need to be able to shine the light on how, those three things I talk about, racism, colonialism, and oppression is alive and well in this building when we talk about Indigenous people, and we want to be able to shed that light on it and, treat us as partners.
And then just going back to the phone, is there any left on the phone? Any? I guess not, so I say thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah.